message is, our message for Trump, our message for MAGA, our message for the Democratic Party and everybody else out there, our message to them is, we are not afraid. We ain't scared. And we say, don't agonize, organize. And we're going to show you how to do this with the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. Sister Belinda Parker Brown, are you around? Because we're about to go into our fight song. Go right into the African Nation fight song. All right. Warm us up. Get us ready. And we want to thank, again, Sister Belinda Parker Brown so much because she really worked to make this day possible. And we are so appreciative to be here in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we're just waiting for them to queue up for the Africa. We are. Shout Uhuru,
Independent and free is what we will be. We are winning. Africa will bask in our victory. We are winning. Long live the liberation of our African nation. Freedom to organization. Socialist world, our creation. 1 billion strong, yes, we are one. We are winning.
Uhuru! 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 And we must give wonderful shout out to Sister Ilikia Ngoma, the one who wrote the African Nation Fight song. And she's definitely a strong supporter of the Black is Back Coalition and all that kind of stuff. So we just want to give her the recognition and a shout out for that beautiful song that she composed. And now we're going to just briefly go over the summation of what we have been going through so far, because this is just so important for us organizing around the things that are so important in terms of our organizing. And we heard yesterday from quite a few people in Louisiana on the ground who are here. Yes. Testing. Oh. Testing. Yesterday we heard a wonderful presentation from our chairman, Omali Yeshitela, talking about how we have not seen, these times are not anything new that we're going through. And he reminded us that in 1989, they've always been trying to take over Washington, D.C. and sending the police on us. All the time they have been doing that. So we have a lot of strong information yesterday that we reviewed. Again, we had presenters from New Orleans themselves who were here. We heard presentations from people who have been political prisoners themselves, from the Angola 3. Well, from one of the representatives of the Angola 3, we heard some very, very powerful presentations. And today we are going to hear even more. This is a continuation of the work of day number 2, a lot of things that we're going to be going through. We talked on yesterday, we talked about the importance of the 19-point platform, which is basically surmises the essence of the political ideology of the Black is Back Coalition. And you have in your pamphlets a lot of very important information that can help you toward organizing, that can help you with organizing for Black community control of the police within your neighborhood. We're going to be hearing more today from the Black Community Control of Education Working Group and the Youth and Student Working Group, as well as the Healthcare Working Group. We're going to be hearing a lot more about that. We heard from Sister Belinda Parker Brown yesterday with Louisiana United and the efforts that they are doing. We've also heard from
both voices of the experience.
Exactly.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. So we have a very powerful program for today. We have a very powerful program for today, and we will be
I want to mention too
forward.
that we heard from Sabrina Foster
Yes.
with Black Lives Matter Grassroots NOLA, which was a very powerful presentation. We also heard from Tony with, okay, Tony. There he is, right, with the New Orleans Alliance agenda, racist and political repression. So we really appreciate those people that graced us with their presence yesterday from their powerful organizations here in Louisiana.
Right, and we heard from the students at Dillard
Yes.
University. We want to certainly thank Dillard University. We want to
Yes,
give a shout out to them, to Dr. Ishmael Ashraf and Tia Shuggs. We want to surely thank them for setting this up, and of course, Sister Belinda Parker Brown, who said, y'all need to come down to New Orleans, Louisiana, and we said, yes, we will be there. So again, we had a very powerful day yesterday. We heard from our political prisoners. We heard Sister Brittany Hutchinson from the Political Prisoners Working Group. We heard from Robert Hillary King, one of the people, the last surviving member of the Angola 3. We also heard from Brother Kaze Torre. So we're going to have another very powerful, impactful day today. And but one of the most important things is to become a member of the Black is Back Coalition. Please make sure that you have your the handouts that we have prepared for you. We will also make sure for our online community that they have access to this information as well.
You know, and Sister Lisa, I also would like to mention that we have a lot of people that are viewing online. If you have not already shared with your neighbors, your friends, your family members, go and share this very dynamic and powerful conference here at Dillard University Center for Racial Justice with Dr. Dr. Ishmael Astra and the students. So go and share and tell everybody you know to join us on today. You can I think the link is still live for you to register to get your link where you can view everything virtual. You know, so that's very important that you start doing that now. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. And we're going to be. Oh yes, and this is also our membership drive. We raised yesterday. We had a goal of 1,000. We raised over 1,000 yesterday, and our goal for today, Sister Kenge, 1,000 again. And we know we're going to get that. We have to be self-funded for our liberation. We are talking about the liberation of our people, an anti-colonial, anti-imperialist movement where we are united with African people around the world and reclaiming our rightful legacy and our rightful heritage, independent of colonizers who think they can tell us what to do. So, and next, and speaking of the Uhuru movement, the chairman and the Uhuru 3 and some of the things that we have been involved with, we are going to hear a very important presentation from the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. Because yes, we have been involved in a very powerful political struggle in which the government sought to put the chairman of the Uhuru movement and of the Black is Back Coalition, he sought to put him in prison for 10 to 15 years for speaking out against what is going on, for speaking out against these wars and condemning them. And also, this had a lot to do with the work that he led in terms of the Black is Back Coalition and our electoral campaign school, where we were teaching people how to put revolution on the ballot and not be tied to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And so I'm going to introduce Sister M. Okay.
You know, Sister Lisa, I just wanted to say as well, while we're waiting to see who's coming up next, I just want people to know that when we talk about our national political agenda for self-determination, we're here to let our people know that we no longer have to bow down and kiss the ring. We no longer have to run and hide and be afraid. We no longer have to, be silent. And that is why we're here today, to have our voices heard, to let it be known without a doubt that we are organizing and mobilizing the people to unite and come together for a worthy cause, that we're saying no more that we will tolerate the oppression of trying to choose from the lesser evil. We're not going to do that anymore. This is not about Republican, Democrat, black, white, all of this, division that have come amongst us. We're calling for everybody that want to unite with a national political agenda for self-determination. And we're on fire for this.
Uhuru. So many times, because we are conditioned, our conditioning tells us. And here's the thing, our conditioning is not even so much about fault, because the messages that you get, the messages that are surrounding you are the messages that you get. But it is so imperative, so important for us as Black people to make sure that we are fighting against a lot of these messages that we hear that we will just think is normal, and it's not. It is imperative that we make sure we are examining the lens and interpreting our world through the lens of the Black liberation struggle. And as somebody who is a member of the Black is Back Coalition, I say you need to make sure that the Black is Back Coalition is one of the lenses that you interpret your world through, such as the writings of our chairman, Omali Yeshitela. We heard from the Black Alliance for Peace yesterday.
Yes.
They do tremendous work. Yes, Uhuru, the Black Alliance for Peace. Please make sure to visit their websites. We heard Friends of the Congo.
Yes.
Friends of the Congo, some powerful organizations within the coalition.
Comrade Paul Humphrey.
Yes. And we know we're going to be hearing later on today from Brother Zaki Baruti, and he's going to be talking with his organization, another organization that's based in St. Louis, Missouri, and we'll also be talking about, I'm assuming, what happened with the tornado. Yes, that they had earlier this year. And it's so very interesting because we know that this is the 20th anniversary. I really hate using that word anniversary, but it is the 20th anniversary of the assault on Katrina in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yes. I also would like to say that we're going to be hearing from the Uhuru 3, Jesse Nevels. He's going to, it's so important, people, that we understand when we're in a fight, what are the tools that we have to use in order for us to win? What is it that we're doing that we should be doing that we're not doing? How important that it is that we know what it is that help us lose when we're in a fight. So it's so important right now for us to hear from all of these dynamic comrades that are coming before us. And when we start, I want to say too, Sister Lisa, that, Sister Betty Davis, here we have working groups. The Black is Back Coalition have some powerful working groups that we want people to join up and unite with us. And when we're saying that we have a working group by Sister Betty Davis for education, people, education is the root. Education is the foundation that we all must have, before and after, so it's so important that you join in and unite with these working groups. We have you, Sister Lisa Davis. Go ahead, talk about your working group, Sister Davis.
Right, the healthcare working group. And we want to be there for our people. We literally do need a whole other system. This one is irredeemable. We need to throw it out. Throw it out on its ASS. Throw it out on its A. I don't know if I can say it because it's also being live streamed, but throw it out. We really do need to. It does not work for us. There is a reason that Black people and also indigenous people, brown people, but we certainly know for a fact that Black people always have the worst of every statistic, no matter what it is, And that is also true within the medical profession. And the medical profession has a history for being as ruthless and as oppressive as its police counterpart. We need to understand that, we need to call that out, and then we need to understand, but how do we navigate through this? Because we know you just can't automatically today, although I wish we could, just automatically, boom, just throw everything away. But there are still ways that we can navigate through this. There are ways that we can work through this, unlike the police, because we don't got to necessarily call them and they'll come and approach us. You know, many times we find ourselves caught up in things that we wasn't even calling the police for or looking for anything from. But with the medical profession, that's different, because many times, because of the system that we have, that has been set up and what we have been conditioned to do, we have to many times go into this healthcare system and call them for help. But it doesn't mean that when we do that, that we relinquish who we are and our belief systems and the things that we understand. So the healthcare working group seeks to help people just navigate through these systems, to navigate through them. I know Sister Betty was telling me about, I'm not gonna go through the whole presentation, but about the things also going on with insurance and with affordability and with how they're attacking the systems on so many ways. So we're going to go over that a little bit. But these are the reasons why we need to be with the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you are, like, we have individual members and we also have organizational membership. And if you are an organization that is dedicated to the Black liberation struggle, dedicated to advancing our people, then be a part of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. The operative word is coalition, a coalition of organizations throughout the country with reach out throughout the world, really. And the chairman has done so much traveling, and we have people with so many connections. So please, we are here. We're here to be utilized.
Yes, you know, I want to talk about another one of our very, very important, you know, working groups, and that is the political prisoner working group. And we heard from Sister Brittany on yesterday. But, you know, when we talk about a working group that is addressing a lot of the atrocities and things that are happening inside of our prison, you know, people, we have to have a working group that are concerned about our loved ones and what's happening to them inside of these godforsaken hellhole prisons and jails across this country. You know, I listened to so many stories about how, you know, the prisons here in the state of Louisiana are so dilapidated. They are so corrupt. You know, people are suffering inside of these prisons and jails. And and when they don't have people that's on the outside that's concerned about what's happening to them on the inside, then it's a lost cause. And what we're saying is that we're going inside of these prisons with our prisoner working group, and we're addressing some of these atrocities that they're facing inside of these prisons. You know, I just got a story not too long ago, Sister Lisa, where the water is contaminated inside of a prison, and they're drinking this brown, orange, you know, just nasty, contaminated water, and it's making the inmates sick. So, this have to be addressed from the outside. It's nothing they can really do about that on the inside. You know, when we talk about how, the traps are set for them in prison, you go to prison and you catch a charge, because, drugs and stuff are coming from the outside into the prisons, and just a whole lot of things that should not be happening. Prison is supposed to be for rehabilitation, not for mass incarceration. People supposed to be able to go to prison and get rehabilitated so that they can enter back into society as upstanding citizens. You know, they didn't learn from their mistakes, but they go to prison. I'm telling you, people literally go to prison and come out worse than they were before they went in. And this cannot be tolerated. You know, so we're saying that we want to get our national political agenda for self-determination, you know, our newspaper and information, you know, to these prisoners that are, you know, that needs our help. So we're here with the Black is Back Coalition, organizing and mobilizing people across the country. You know, it's so many different groups that are uniting on this effort. So we're excited about that. That's the reason why we're saying that it takes resources and it takes people to join up and be a part of a powerful, powerful coalition. The Black is Back Coalition that's organizing and mobilizing people across the country. That's the reason why we're saying it's time out. We can no longer agonize. We must organize.
That's right. And also, let me just say, because some of us are shy. Yeah. Some of us might feel, oh gosh, I don't have this and I don't have that. Everything that you have, everyone has something to contribute. We also need people to do the administrative work. We need people who can do websites. All you have to do is just show up and bring your heart and your determination. All you have to do. We've got to change this. We got to make it a better day. I don't see how anybody can be satisfied with what's going on. You see, I'm wearing my keffiyeh today. We cannot ever forget about all the wars that are going on. We are not, the United States likes to act like it is the center of the universe. It is not, and I despise that term, American exceptionalism. We are not the center of the universe, but what we are the center of is conflict and war, and we've got to change that. We've got to take a stand, and we have the capacity. We have the organizational capacity to change that, to make sure that things can happen. One of the things that I have learned, and I've learned a lot of lessons through being a proud member of the Uhuru movement and the Black is Back Coalition, but one of the things that I did learn through this vicious battle, that this vicious assault on the leadership of our organization, and it was also an assault on free speech. But one of the things that I did have the chance to learn was the power of a political ideology, because the government put up at least $10 million that they were throwing after this case because they wanted to bribe people and to intimidate them and to break them, to make them get up on the stand and lie, because that's what they usually do. So they tried to do that, but they could get no one to break, no one. 2 years of going after that. And to see that happening, because I'll be honest with you, I was thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to get people, they're going to say this, and I was like, what do I know? This is just what was coming on in my mind, but it didn't happen. And that has everything to do with the political ideology of the Uhuru movement. We don't talk about sitting at anybody's table. We talk about overturning colonialism. Big difference. Uhuru. And with that, we are going to hear from a very powerful person, very, very powerful leader, and that is the chair of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense Campaign. We are so proud to present Mwezi Odom of the African People's Socialist Party. She is the Secretary General of the African People's Socialist Party, and the chair of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense Campaign. Mwezi Odom is a leading member and organizer within the Uhuru movement, a socialist and African internationalist movement led by the African People's Socialist Party, founded in 1972. In November 2021, Mwezi joined the African People's Socialist Party to make herself useful to the vanguard organization of the African working class. She now serves as the Secretary General for the African People's Socialist Party USA and leads the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa counter-offensive against the U.S. government and FBI attacks on the chairman and the Uhuru Three. And she is also a proud African woman, lover of African internationalism, and she believes African people will once again be free and self-governing. And she is also the mother of three of Africa's best daughters, Sister Mwezi Odom. Uhuru!
Uhuru. Uhuru, comrades, Black is back.
Black is
Black
back!
is back.
Black is back!
Uhuru. Wow. I just want to really appreciate that introduction. I want to appreciate day 2 of what has been a very dynamic and powerful 17th annual Black is Back conference. And I just want to salute and unite with the theme, Don't Agonize, Organize. And just want to really appreciate this opportunity to speak on a very important campaign that is still ongoing, and but one that has definitely changed, history, and has, been a very successful and winning and mobilizing campaign called the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign. And I'm going to be here speaking on behalf of the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. So before I begin my presentation, I just want to salute my leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onezine Yeshitela, who lead the African People's Socialist Party. I also want to, let me see here. Sorry, we can go back to the next slide. Thank you, comrade. And I want to also appreciate our Zoom tech, who's going to be helping me during this presentation. And I just want to, before we begin, oh, actually, yes, you can go to the next slide, comrade. Sorry, my thing's a little slow. Yes, don't agonize, organize. And in the vein of that, I want to say that, the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Fight Back Coalition and the campaign was initiated, following the July 29, 2022 violent FBI raids, which, continues to win support from individuals and organizations across the political spectrum and around the world. The FBI raids, the economic sanctions, the indictments, all of this have prompted ongoing, political actions and statements of outrage, spanning across the political spectrum, and spawned a broad-based organization of a non-sectarian, anti-colonial free speech movement called the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition, which is building the movement and building the anti-colonial free speech movement. So, as I mentioned, these, I'm going to show a quick video, but just to give you just a recap, especially for those who may not be aware, the Hands Off Uhuru counteroffensive came after these military-style raids on 7 homes and properties of the African People's Socialist Party. Their main target was Omali Yeshitela, the leader of the organization, and this, as we understand, was a continuation of an attempt to crush the Black liberation struggle for self-determination. And when the FBI attacked Uhuru, we fought back and we built a movement to call into question this attack on all freedom-loving people. So let's go ahead and take a look at the video of the raids. Uhuru.
This is the FBI. You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for this.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
Yeah, breach, what do you need?
Need one.
I don't know.
I'll tell Ben the money.
Hold on.
Thank you.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru. So we say hands off Uhuru, we say hands off Africa. And it took the FBI 9 months to indict the Uhuru Three following these violent raids on Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Penny Hess, and Jesse Nevel. These were the later on we'll talk about the Uhuru Three, but according to the indictment in 2014, Chairman Omali Yeshitela suddenly, became, along with this, the Uhuru movement's 50 years of long struggle for the African liberation movement, suddenly became pawns in a Russian criminal conspiracy. And so what were the charges against the Uhuru Three? The charges were U.S. Code 18951, this foreign agents charge, which is a violation of a statute requiring agents to operate, who are operating under the control of a foreign government or foreign officials to notify the Attorney General. This one carried a maximum 10-year prison sentence. And then U.S. conspiracy, this was code number 371, the conspiracy to commit an offense against or defraud the U.S. government. And this charge carried a 5-year maximum sentence. And, we were very clear. Well, and just to say also that during this period, we saw serious attacks on the economic, institutions and development projects of the Uhuru movement. Economic sanctions, the removal of a petition, the Africans Charged Genocide petition, which was online and had gained over 130,000 signatures, and this was wiped clean from the internet. No evidence of it. An unlawful arrest of a movement member, a burning of a church that the organization had on contract to purchase to continue the revitalization, projects in the Black community of Northside in St. Louis, Missouri. And also, a $10 million bounty or reward for anybody who had information about the Russian, individual named in the indictment. All of this, and of course, the looming threat of imprisonment. So when the U.S. government attacked the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement, they once again openly declared war on the Black liberation movement. And this was not, as we understand, and as the chairman has, stated, this was not a strength of the colonial state, but it was a statement of its weakness. And even more, this was a statement that the Black liberation struggle lives on and continues to pose a threat to the current status quo. The African People's Socialist Party, which was founded in 1972 with the distinct goal to complete the revolution of the 1960s, coming out of this military defeat of the 1960s, our movement was crushed, our leaders were assassinated, imprisoned, slandered, and out of the ashes grew the African People's Socialist Organization, this organization with an attempt to reverse the verdict of colonialism. And the colonial mode of production that is responsible for the suffering and the domination global domination of the oppressed masses of people around the world. And so for some, yes, this was a time to agonize, right, during this, defeat. Others, a time to restore, as the chairman says, peace on the plantation and to quell this resistance and sell out the interests of the working class people and to, to avoid any type of inevitable fate for those who dare to resist. But for the APSP and the Uhuru movement, this, we understand that this attack is just a part of the FBI's track record against the war, against, Black freedom. And as the chairman says, freedom for Black people is illegal. And So we want to say that this was a time to not agonize, but to organize against the counterinsurgency, whose goal under Director J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI's COINTELPRO, was aimed at investigating and disrupting and, crushing political groups within the United States. So as we were launching this campaign, and again, on day one of the raids on the chairman's, on the front steps of his home, which was, raided, the chairman launched the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, campaign. And this is how it started. And in an article that the chairman wrote as we were putting this out, he said, the FBI wants to put me on trial for fighting for Black freedom. The chairman says, put the colonial state on trial, we will win. And one thing that we repeated constantly during the beginning of the campaign was, we are not retreating, we are building. And I just want to read a quick excerpt from some of the really profound political education that the chairman, gave us during the beginning of this campaign, and was a mandate and the necessity to build. The chairman writes, the urgent and violent attack from the colonial state on July 29, 2022, posed a tangible threat on the African People's Socialist Party and the members of our solidarity forces, and placed us in a position where a political fight back is absolutely required. The fight back is in the form, has initiated a serious counteroffensive to be carried out in the form of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense Campaign. At the time, we had 4 members who were named as unindicted co-conspirators. And again, all of this was under the, these bogus charges were by the FBI and the US government under the Biden administration. The chairman says this is a threat to our institutions, the program, and our organization, and we must actively engage in a dynamic counteroffensive. The chairman says that as we have stated, this system is in a serious crisis and a state of disintegration, and it will do everything in its power to hold itself together, even at the expense of its own values and beliefs. We are looking at a country that engages in war with people around the world, yet it's so fragile that it can't contend with the anti-colonial ideological and political debate being advanced by by the African People's Socialist Party and others, challenging the exploitative, expressive relationships imposed on us within this colonial mode of production. Our victory will come from the ability to organize, mobilize, and win the masses in concrete ways that calls to action those who have expressed solidarity with the Uhuru movement in the wake of the attack. This counteroffensive raises the question of colonialism. It is not a question or a statement of Black people don't have rights, as this statement can be easily obscured in the conscious memory of those who remember and refer to the civil rights movement or the perceived advancement or improvement of civil liberties of African people. But the objective truth of the matter is that the colonizer has certain rights that do not extend to the colonized. Our theory requires an examination of the history of the relationship between the colonizer and the colonized. So we must pose this real question to the US citizens and the peoples of the world. Do the colonized have access to the rights that the colonizers confer upon themselves? Are these rights of the colonizers extended to those who are colonized? I'm just going to scroll down a little bit just to read a couple more statements from the chairman. He says that these charges conferred upon our organization and its leaders are designed to liquidate these rights fought by African people within the US and colonized people globally. This attack and charges are designed to redirect our focus towards liberation and power by liquidating our capacity to remain on our forward trajectory by scrambling to defend the party, its leaders, its institutions. We don't retreat, we build. And again, as the chairman says, free speech has always been illegal for Black people. When the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, when, these were, written, African people were, still enslaved. And so we're very clear that even just our speech is illegal under this, colonial law. So immediately we began the campaign to drop the charges under, on the Uhuru 3. Under the leadership of Chairman Amalia Shitelo, we called on the people to donate to the defense campaign. We had to build a serious legal defense. We called on people to sign an emergency response pledge, to sign the online petition, to get involved, volunteer their skills, hit the streets. And we launched an aggressive media campaign to break out of this encirclement that, colonial, legacy media was, blocking from any information, being put out about this case. We also called on people to join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. This was a coalition that was launched in 2023, a year after the raids, where we, called on, organizations to build a non-sectarian free speech, coalition that took up the demand to drop the charges on the Uhuru Three, but also joined in the struggles to free all political prisoners. We took up this, struggle to free Leonard Peltier, Mumia Abu Jamal. We denounced and fought to defend and stand in unity with the, Palestinian people who were, being slaughtered under, by the U.S., by the settler state of Israel. We, stood with our comrades in the Cuba Solidarity Movement, Venezuela, the Filipino movement, and the reparations to the Black community. We also marched at the Black People's March with the Black is Back Coalition at a tremendous march in Washington, D.C. at the Black People's March. And during that time, we saw mobilizations all across the world, in Europe, all throughout Africa, and on both coasts of the United States. We also called on people to attend the Uhuru 3 trial and to send in, character letters and attend the Uhuru 3 sentencing. All of this was how we organized to make sure that we were not isolated in this struggle, and, winning endorsements from across the political spectrum, over 150 organizations and individuals, joining this, fight back coalition, helped us make it to the, to the September 3rd trial in 2024 with, with the power of the people. And so on December 12, 2024, a federal jury in Tampa, Florida, had returned the verdict in the anti-colonial free speech trial of the century. They, recognized, and just to say that the U.S., that it was clear that this was a test case for, free speech. And the federal prosecutors charged Chairwoman Amalia Shatella and the Uhuru Three with acting as unregistered foreign agents, as of Russia, and conspiracy to do the same based purely on their constitutionally protected activities, including demonstrations, petitions, publications, articles. This was the evidence that the prosecution tried to prove as, as illegal crimes. And again, this was the first case in which the government had used the statute criminalizing unregistered foreign agents to target political or dissenting speech. The trial took place, again, 2 years after the raids, and this trial was, again, supposed to last a whole month. However, this trial lasted only 9 days. And after 9 days, the 12-person jury concluded that a not guilty verdict on the foundational charge of working as unregistered agents of a Russian government. They found the Uhuru Three not guilty. This jury, again, just to say, contained no Black jurors, but to their credit, they saw clearly that African people have agency and have sovereignty over their actions. And the government presented 14 witnesses, 12 of them FBI agents, while the defense needed to present no witnesses to show that the government's accusations of being Russian agents was completely fabricated. The jury wrongfully convicted the Uhuru Three, however, following a desperately misleading jury instructions, and closing arguments by the prosecution. And this contradictory, guilty verdict on the lesser charge, of conspiring to work as an unregistered agent. So they're not guilty of being Russian agents, but they're guilty for thinking about it or conspiring. This one carried a maximum prison sentence of 5 years and $250,000 fine each. So we rallied around that. And again, on the, so we rallied around that, pushing towards the, sentencing date, which was in December of last year. And again, the not guilty verdict on the primary charge was a devastating blow, right, to the prosecution, whose main objective was to convict on the Russian agents charge. And, with their lack of evidence and exposed lies, they were unable to convince the jury that, Russia was behind this 60-year legacy of anti-colonial struggle led by Chairwoman Amalia Shatella. So on December 16th, 2024, Chairwoman Amalia Shatella, Penny Hess, and Jesse Nevel proudly walked out of a U.S. courtroom with, surrounded by supporters you know, as they were sentenced to only 3 years of probation and 300 hours of community service in their conviction of the, you know, bogus charge that they were conspiring to be Russian agents. And so it was very clear that, you know, Uhuru works for Black people. It was also clear that the fight was not over and that we would have to appeal. So on June 16th, our attorneys, the Uhuru 3 attorneys, Chairman Amalia Shatella, Penny Hess, and Jesse Nevel, filed an appeal brief on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals seeking to overturn this 2024 bogus conviction. And if the Uhuru 3's falsely conviction is overturned through this appeal, this will be a precedent-setting case law that will establish, you know, to contain the government's ability to criminalize, you know, at least, you know, in writing, right? But we'll stop, you know, there'll be case law so that the government's ability to criminalize speech merely by alleging a relationship between the accused and a foreign government, you know, of a private entity or an individual. And this, you know, precedent will have a major impact on, you know, the scores of, you know, individuals and organizations and, you know, free speech cases that we're currently seeing across the US. So I just want to say that I'm just coming up to my end of my time. I just want to salute the, you know, brilliant Uhuru 3 lawyers, and, you know, concurrently, the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition, you know, has announced in this, you know, struggle, you know, coming from the trial, well, you know, coming from the attacks, coming from the anti-colonial free speech movement to the, next slide, to the free speech trial of the century. You know, launching this, you know, campaign, we continue to, you know, we'll take this out, you know, worldwide. And we are launching the campaign to repeal the FARA, you know, the FARA conspiracy laws and fight for anti-colonial free speech, exposing the history of the U.S., you know, a foreign agents law as, you know, political weapons used to attack anti-colonial free speech. So the U.S. government has spent, again, tens of millions of dollars employing, you know, agents and all this to, you know, attack the, attack the Uhuru 3, but our lawyers and, you know, and by the power of the people, these baseless accusations and these charges will not stand a day in court. I'm just going to say just a couple more things as I close, because I have, I think, just like 1 more minute to go. And again, I'm going quickly because you're going to hear from the Uhuru 3, and you're also going to hear more about this FARA campaign. But to say that we are winning, comrades, and, you know, just all that we have achieved during this, you know, period, from the Uhuru 3 outcome to the raising of, you know, over $500,000 in, you know, resources by the people, you know, and the, you know, pro bono work of our lawyer and attorney Leonard Goodman. You know, all of this, and, you know, has been a really powerful show of the people, and, you know, forwarding the long-term goals of the African liberation movement, but of the anti-colonial struggle to, you know, free up the entire world. And to say that all of the institutions of the African People's Socialist Party, you know, that came under attack during this, during these past 3 years, have also flourished and have also grown and continue to need our support. So I just want to show that this is just a glimpse of, one, why they attacked us, but also why this fight back is so important to get behind, because when we win, these institutions, you know, will be in the power of the, you know, of the hands of the people. So as we say, comrades, it is not over. We fight back until it's won. And when we fight, we win. So with that, I will turn it back to our MCs and say that I unite with, and we will organize, comrade, because we don't agonize, we organize. So Black is back, and Uhuru.
Now people can hear me online. We don't agonize, we organize. Uhuru. And next, I'm very, very proud to present one of the other people who are falsely accused and who the government tried to imprison for 10 to 15 years. And that is Penny Hess. She is the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people working in white communities under the leadership of Chairman Amalia Shatella and the African People's Socialist Party. She has been a member of the African People's the APSC since the founding in September of 1976, and is the author of Overturning the Culture of Violence. Penny Hess, Uhuru.
Uhuru! Uhuru! Uhuru, it is such an honor to be here today. Thank you, Lisa. I really want to salute you. I am very honored to be here at the 17th annual conference of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. And I want to unite with the slogan, Don't Mourn, Organize. And I have to, as always, begin by saluting my leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has fought tirelessly and relentlessly for the liberation of Africa and African people his entire adult life, and who has done everything possible to win every form of support and solidarity for that struggle, including from the white community, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I want to salute Deputy Chair Ona Yeshitela, the brilliant coordinator, leader, architect, as she's called, of the Black Power Blueprint that has taken the mandates of Chairman Omali Yeshitela to put dual and contending power, Black power, on the ground here and around the world. And she has done that brilliantly, relentlessly, and amazingly. I am so honored to be under the leadership of Deputy Chair and Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And I also want to salute the Secretary General, Mwezi Odom, dynamic leader of Hands Off Uhuru. And thank you so much for that brilliant and very dynamic presentation about Hands Off Uhuru that we just saw. And I also have to salute the National Central Committee, the African People's Socialist Party, including the Secretary General of Africa, Tafari Mugeri, and the Secretary General of the European Front, Luwezi Kinshasa, also just amazing. I thought their presentations yesterday were very powerful. I salute you, Comrade Lisa, Black is Back Vice Chair, Betty Davis, all the members and leaders of this powerful coalition, and all the esteemed presenters at this conference. It was a great day yesterday. And I do just want to say that I want to give a special salute to Belinda Parker Brown, who is hosting today, this weekend. I unite with Louisiana being the boiling point, as you've said. And I just want to say that I will never, never forget what this government did to African people. I will never forget the pictures and videos of African people sitting on their rooftops with water up to their toes and the rescue boats just passing them by and leaving them there. This is colonialism. This is what this government does to the African community. And I also want to salute my comrade Jesse Nevel for just such great work and stand. And what I would like to do quickly is, as a way of talking about the Uhuru 3 and the attack on it, I would like to talk about the African People's Solidarity Committee and why it was attacked and why that attack failed. And because the attack on Jesse and myself by the state as part of the Uhuru 3 is part of the attack on Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party. That was the main target. They wanted to destroy and undermine white solidarity and reparations, that the stand in relationship to the African Liberation Movement and the African People's Socialist Party, but they could not do that, and they did not do that. And that, we recognize the state has always attacked the African Liberation Movement. Marcus Garvey, similar charges to what the chairman had. He was deported from the US and died in exile, basically in England. W.E. Du Bois had almost exactly the same charges as the chairman. He was forced to leave the US and die in Ghana because of what the government was doing. Paul Robeson, so many others have been attacked in this way for taking the stand that African people must have power, political and economic power over their lives. And that this isn't to mention the assassinations of more than 30 members of the Black Panther Party, among many, many other forms of the attack. And the African People's Solidarity Committee was formed in 1976. The chairman held a conference to build the white solidarity movement in Florida that year in September 1976. And that's when the African People's Solidarity Committee was formed. The chairman always told us, and I always thought this was incredibly inspiring. He told us that he was fortunate to have been born when revolution was the main trend in the world. That was one of the first things he told us. And I thought that was powerful because it takes us as white solidarity, it takes us out of just something that's local or even bound to the US, but the struggle of African people is worldwide. And when African people are free, when the colonial domination that continues of Africa is overthrown and African people have the return of their resources, the whole world, everyone will be free. And that was very, very, very inspiring. And when the APSC was formed this year, the anti-colonial struggle in the world indeed was very, very strong. I would just also say that the chairman taught us the significance of what he said, the first workers and anti-colonial revolution in one revolution was the victory of African people in Haiti, and upheld that. Not what the white left says, something that happened in France or the white left. It was African people in Haiti that brought this question of the anti-colonial movement in 1804 to the world, and was responsible. African workers were responsible for defeating what would be today like fighting NATO forces, fighting the US Army. And it was just a brilliant, brilliant victory. And so, in 1973 and 74, when APSC was formed around this time, the Vietnamese had just won a staggering victory against the United States. The Vietnamese, as the chairman always pointed out, had defeated Japan, France at Dien Bien Phu, and the US. And they had nothing. They were like the people of Haiti. They were poor and impoverished. The Vietnamese people often had to ride their bikes to the front with their guns on it that they took from when they killed soldiers. They took the guns and armed themselves. And the chairman upheld the Vietnamese, and that the year 1975 was also the year of the victory in Angola, where Cuba had played a significant role, as well as in Africa, Mozambique and the Cape Verde Islands. So the chairman also summed up that this period was a time of what he termed the counterinsurgency, the military defeat of the Black Revolution of the 1960s, following the assassinations, the slander of COINTELPRO, and all the other fronts of that attack. And the chairman studied this counterinsurgency, and he said he wanted to solve all the problems left standing by the defeat of the Black Revolution of the 60s. He called it a counterinsurgency. Nobody else summed that up. They didn't know why the Black movement just ended. People were still struggling to be free, he told us. And he wanted to build a conscious, strategic mass movement, a revolutionary mass movement, not dependent on a spontaneous mass movement. And he's written about this brilliantly in his pamphlet, Tactics and Strategy, the political aspects of building a mass movement, which I would really urge people to read. I believe it is online. But one of the questions that the chairman always said that he had to resolve is what to do about the white people. In 1966, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee at Vine City in Atlanta evicted all their white members and told white people to go back into our own communities and organize support for the African liberation movement. That didn't happen. That didn't happen anyway. So 10 years later, in the summer of 1976, I had the honor of just sort of accidentally hearing the chairman speak in Louisville, Kentucky, where he was on tour, and one of the things that he was calling for was the building of a white solidarity organization that would organize in the white community. And in the center, I would say my greatest takeaway of that incredible conference that the chairman led was that the main question, the main contradiction in the world is not racism, it is colonialism. And actually, the very next year, the chairman wrote a pamphlet called Colonialism, the Main Contradiction Facing African People Inside the US and around the world. And the chairman has defined this colonial question as the colonial mode of production, that colonialism is not a thing from the past. It is, in fact, the DNA, the essence of the system that we live in, which is very, very helpful and scientific and really an important thing for us as white people to understand and to embody and to carry out and to win in the white community. And that colonialism is not the ideas in white people's heads, but it is the domination of a whole people by a foreign and alien state power. And so therefore the struggle, as the chairman always said, of African people is a struggle for power to be able to have the apparatus of the state to protect African people from any bad ideas that white people have that would be able to hurt any African person. And it was very, very, it's a very powerful statement and goal. And from the founding of the African People Solidarity Committee, the chairman began political education and determination that we were to struggle against colonialism, not racism, which he called a self-defeating waste of time. And this is what has informed our practice of APSC over the years. And that, just to say, that at the founding conference of APSC, the chairman read to us from Karl Marx's book, Capital, where he talks about primitive accumulation. And he asked the question, Karl Marx asked the question, the chairman read this to us. Marx said, well, where did the startup money of capitalism come from? And the chairman said, it came from what he called the primitive accumulation, our first accumulation of capital. And he said, Marx said, that was the discovery of gold and silver in the Americas, the enslavement and entombment of the Aboriginal or indigenous people in the mines, the beginning of the conquest and looting of the East Indies, which is not only India, but is Vietnam and South Asia, and the turning of Africa, he said, into a warren for the commercial hunting of black skins. And Marx said this signalized, quote, the rosy dawn of the era of capitalist production. And he said that it was, you know, it was followed by things like the Opium War, the anti-Jacobin War, et cetera. And the chairman quoted Marx because he called this primitive accumulation the original sin. And this was something the chairman pointed out because he always said African people are the original sin. African people are the original sin. What happened to African people, the enslavement of African people. And so for APSC, this has informed our work on how we as white people can begin to see the world as it really is, not as we want it. And we have always created PowerPoints and wrote about this original sin, this assault on Africa, this kidnapping and stolen labor, the genocide against the indigenous people. This is what my book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, is about. This is our work. And that I think that, you know, the existence of an APSC with total unity carrying out the message of African internationalism to white people as part of the strategy of the African liberation movement is why they could not defeat and an attack on Jesse and myself. You know, it's just a given because you know, Che said, it is not about well-wishing, it is about sharing the very same fate, whether in victory and death or death. And this is the essence of what the chairman created APSC to be. This is why they could not separate us, why we are part of it. And I just wanted to say just a few last points here, that we see Trump now is saying he is shutting down the Smithsonian Institute, especially the exhibits on the enslavement of African people. So he wants to silence this. But I recently saw a TV discussion of African commentators talking about this reality and very concerned about it. But they referred to slavery as the, quote, original sin. That was the chairman. That was the chairman that put that out and fought for it. The chairman popularized that understanding. And he created APSC to make sure that white people know this. And that in 1982, the chairman held the first tribunal on reparations to African people. He had a goal to make reparations a household word and to portray it, to show that it is a revolutionary demand. It exposes the reality that African people are owed trillions of dollars for the stolen labor, their stolen freedom, and for the colonial domination, and stated that the goal was, the chairman stated that the goal was to make reparations a household word. And indeed, it is a household word, because I get a Google notification for anything to do with the word reparations. There is not a day that I do not get scores of notifications of reparations commissions or tribunals for reparations throughout the US, the Caribbean, the continent of Africa. None of that, nobody even knew what that word reparations meant or referred to. In 1982, the chairman had a goal to make it a household word and into the property of the African working class, and he did that, and it's very powerful. And even the United Nations has taken up the call for reparations. One of the coordinators for that is Muriel Fanon, the daughter of Frantz Fanon. So these are the questions and the issues and how APSC has been informed to go out and to organize. Again, the struggle against colonialism, the understanding that it is a colonial mode of production. It is the essence of the system that we live in. This is why I wrote the book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, more than 20 years ago, and it's more relevant than ever. So Trump might close down the Smithsonian and the slavery exhibit, but the party has APSC and USM in 130 cities. They will not silence the African People's Solidarity Committee or the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. It's too late. And that I just want to say also, just really quickly, that I was out in the Bay Area earlier this year, and I was on I went on a little tour around the San Francisco area to speak about the 20th anniversary of this book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, and the significance of it under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And a white left, the only place that had a problem with it was I was banned from a white left bookstore. They had me on the program that I was going to be speaking there, but then they met in their consensus and said, no, that book is banned. We are not allowing her to speak. So I just want to say that, but luckily a lot of people came to another place that took it on and we were able to have it. So, you know, I just think that everything that the US government is doing, this is colonialism. This is the colonial mode of production, that white people are here. We are in solidarity. We are honored and deeply inspired and to go out to be on the winning side under the leadership of the African Revolution of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, his courage, his integrity, his relentlessness. And I can only say that we are growing, we are winning, and I am proud to be winning on the side under the leadership of the African people, the Black is Back Coalition, and don't mourn, organize. This is our mandate, Uhuru, and unity through reparations.
Unity through reparation. Woo, 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 woo. Uhuru, Thank you so much, Comrade Penny. Thank you so much. Next, I am honored to bring up the next presenter, also one of the Uhuru Three, whom they tried to come after and imprison for 10 to 15 years. And that is Jesse Nevel. He is the national chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the mass organization of the African People's Solidarity Committee. Jesse met the Uhuru movement when he attended a workshop led by the African People Support Coalition, Chairwoman Penny Hess in Sarasota, and he joined the Uhuru Solidarity Movement a few months later at an event in St. Petersburg, where he saw Chairman Omali Yeshitela speak about the historic struggle to free Africa and African people. Since then, he has organized under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party to win unity through reparations from the white community, whether as an on-the-ground organizer or as a mayoral candidate. Uhuru, Comrade Jesse Nevel. Uhuru. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Unity through? Hands off Uhuru. 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 Thank you so much to the Black is Back Coalition Vice Chair, Lisa Davis. And it's an incredible honor to be here in New Orleans, Louisiana, for this powerful conference, the 17th annual conference of Black is Back. And I just want to give another round of applause for both of the presentations that we just heard from Chair Mwezi Odom and Chairwoman Penny Hess. Uhuru. Those were brilliant presentations and just overview and sum up of this incredible fight back of Hands Off Uhuru that Chairman Omali Yeshitela has led for the past 3 years. And I will be speaking a little bit more specifically about some of the legal questions that came up in this process and how the chairman and the Hands Off Uhuru campaign took this on as a political trial. And I also want to salute attorney Mutaqee Akbar that just walked in the room. Uhuru. Awesome. All right. Well, excited to hear from Attorney Akbar very shortly. So I'll try to be quick here. But first of all, I just want to begin by deeply saluting my leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the African People's Socialist Party, Deputy Chair Ona Zane Yeshitela. And it's such an honor to have met the party back in 2010 and to be under their leadership as an organizer in the African People's Solidarity Committee and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And again, also want to acknowledge and salute Chairwoman Penny Hess, my direct leadership, the African People's Solidarity Committee, who has been modeling and demonstrating the genuine stand of white solidarity with Black power for nearly 50 years. Next September, it will be 50 years since the founding of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And again, I want to salute Black is Back, Comrade Akenge, Lisa Davis, Belinda Parker Brown, Louisiana United International, Comrade Betty Davis, Uhuru. And I also want to thank Dillard University and the Center for Racial Justice for hosting this. So it's, as Chairwoman Penny said, it's an honor to be presenting, in Louisiana and on this, in the context of the history of struggle of African people in Louisiana, including Katrina, as was mentioned, the Angola prison, and so many other things, every aspect of life, the deep oppression and deep resistance and struggle of African people. And as Chairwoman Penny explained, I am a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which is the organization, the mass organization of APSC, which has the assignment to organize in the white community under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party to win white people to stand in solidarity with Black power and to fight for reparations and to actually pay reparations to African people by contributing material solidarity to the African self-determination and economic self-reliance programs of the Uhuru movement. And I'm also very honored to be one of the Uhuru Three, along with two heroes and leaders, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who, as Chairwoman Penny mentioned, is and was the primary target of this attack, and Chairwoman Penny Hess. And before going into some of the discussion of the trial and the campaign, I also want to recognize all of the brilliant attorneys who have represented us and continue to represent us, including, as I mentioned, the one who's in the room with us now, Attorney Mutaqee Akbar, as well as Attorney Leonard Goodman, Angela Rainey, Addie Griffin, and Tom Inskeep, an incredible legal team. The chairman referred to them as the dream team that was a nightmare for the prosecution, and very, very true. So I wanted to just share a quote from the chairman, because it can't be said any better than the way the chairman laid this out in this pamphlet called The Dialectics of Black Revolution. And just start by saying that all of the understandings of what I'm going to be talking about come from the understandings and teachings of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and African internationalism, without which would have been impossible for me to understand any of this. And what the chairman wrote in this presentation, I think, is a perfect kind of overview for an understanding of what happened in the trial of the Uhuru 3 and how the chairman and the party approached it. So the chairman wrote, we're talking about a counterinsurgency that has created a situation where there's public approval for the total abrogation of democratic rights to the Black community, using various kinds of code words like drugs and crime as the basis for attacking Black people who they used to attack right up front because they're Black. We say that the response to this must be a conscious effort by the revolution throughout the country to push back the counterinsurgency. In the process of so doing, we must also raise up the struggle for the national democratic rights of African people. I want to tell you why we're doing this, the chairman says. We are clear that the debate cannot be made with this system about the validity of the struggle for Black power or for the African Revolution. We're not interested in arguing with a judge or a policeman about whether or not revolution is good or bad. What we have to do is deepen the crisis for the social system itself. This social system, at this time and place in history, has a contradiction that on the one hand, it is absolutely necessary for it to repress the African masses, while on the other hand, it is necessary for it to pose as a beacon of democracy. So what we want to do is make it have to deal with the question of democracy, not the question of revolution. It is our responsibility to make the revolution, make them have to deal with democracy. So he finishes by saying, when I go to court, I'm not, and this is like 20 years before the trial of the Uhuru 3, the chairman wrote this. He said, when I go to court, I'm not arguing about whether the Black revolution is fine. I'm arguing that I have a right to be a revolutionary because they said it in their constitution, that it's permitted. We're not trying to win judges. We're trying to win the masses. We're not trying to win the state to agree the revolution is good. We're trying to present it with a contradiction inherent in itself. At some juncture, the system has to say democracy is just good for white people. That's all right. The masses need to hear that too. If you clarify that, it changes the conditions all down the line. The system must say that or continue to pretend, as they do right now, that democracy is for everybody. What I want them to do is deal with democracy. Don't deal with the revolution. We'll handle that. That's what the chairman said. So that lays the groundwork for talking about the trial of the Uhuru 3 and the way that the political strategy was carried out by the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, whose understanding from the very beginning was that this was a political trial, that it had to be understood politically, that the law was being used as a weapon of political repression. It had nothing to do with the facts or the evidence ultimately. The United States government knew, we actually, our attorneys got them to admit this during the trial, they knew they had no evidence of what they were saying. And they were talking about election interference and all this kind of stuff. They knew they had no evidence when they publicly lied about what they claimed that the chairman and the Uhuru 3 were doing. So it wasn't about that. It was about a continuation of the US government's long war against the struggle of African people for self-determination and national liberation, which has over and over again used the law as a cover for carrying out a political mission. And that's exactly what this was about. So the primary target, as Chairwoman Penny said again, is that it was the chairman and his 60 plus years of leadership. The chairman is the one they could not crush. And that's why they wanted to put him in prison. They wanted him to die in prison. We have to be clear about that. Chairman is 83 years old. They wanted to give him a up to 15-year prison sentence, along with, for each of the Uhuru 3, and up to $500,000 in fines if you combine the maximum penalties from both charges. And I don't think anyone should assume that the United States government really thinks the chairman works for Russia. They know he works for African people. They know he's an agent of African liberation, and that's why they carried out this attack. And similarly, I don't think they believe Chairwoman Penny Hess and myself work under the leadership of the Russian government. I think they attacked us because they know we work under the leadership of Black Power and the African Revolution. So the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, the political fight back, was launched on July 29th of 2022 on the front steps of Chairman Omali Yeshitela's home. Within less than an hour from the last armored vehicle leaving Redbud, the neighborhood where he and Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela live and where they had been raided that morning, he organized a press conference and spoke to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. The video footage went viral. The entire broadcast was actually streamed by a Fox affiliate, streamed the entire hour-long press conference on YouTube. And he spoke to the people. He talked about what happened that day. By the way, the FBI also held a press conference, which they don't necessarily always do when they raid somebody. They held a press conference in St. Petersburg, Florida, and the Department of Justice issued a press release. So this was a war of ideas from day one, a war to control and define the narrative of what this was really about. And the chairman didn't skip a beat in taking control of that narrative and using every platform and every opportunity to speak to the masses, because he said from the beginning, the trial starts now. We have to put the state on trial, and the jury is the people of the world, the masses of the people of the world. So the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, as Chair Mwezi said, it was the anti-colonial free speech movement, because when the First Amendment was written, as the chairman explains, African people were enslaved. So the First Amendment was not written, it was written for white people. Therefore, who else, as the chairman asks, but African people would be the vanguard of the fight for free speech, but those African people who didn't have it in this country to begin with. It only makes sense that anyone and everyone who believes in freedom of speech, in freedom of democratic rights, political expression, would rally behind the African liberation movement as the champions of true anti-colonial democracy. So let me skip ahead a little bit here. Okay, so we have this trial, and we're going to hear from attorney Mutaqee Akbar to talk more about the case, the indictment, the appeal, etc. But I just want to say that the way the trial was approached was as a political trial, again, to make the government, make the prosecution, make the judge have to deal not with whether or not they like the African Revolution, but whether or not they like their own constitution, whether or not they like their own Bill of Rights, whether or not they like their own First Amendment. And the chairman's philosophy has always been revolutionaries don't go underground voluntarily, and that you have to fight for every inch of democratic space. And that's what happened in that courtroom. So the people were key. The courthouse was packed. We thanks to our lawyers doing some maneuvering, we got the biggest courtroom in the whole courthouse, and it was packed every single day. The judge was surprised. In the beginning, he said, well, we know, friends and family will be here in the beginning, and then they'll winnow out, and we'll close the overflow room. They never closed the overflow room. The room was packed, and there were people there every single day. And also the Burning Spear had reporters in the court. They were publishing articles every night to educate the public on what was going on. We had courtroom illustrators, illustrators drawing what was happening in the courtroom. The government called no actual witnesses. No actual witnesses. Instead, they called a bunch of FBI agents who broke down under cross-examination by our attorneys and admitted that they had found no evidence that the chairman had ever worked under the direction or control of a Russian or of anyone. So it was an incredible trial, and we were found not guilty of acting as Russian agents without notifying the Attorney General. We were convicted of conspiracy to act as Russian agents without notifying the Attorney General. To rephrase that, We were found guilty of conspiring to hide from the government that we were Russian agents, despite the fact that we were found not guilty of being Russian agents. So that was basically the verdict, which was bizarre and completely illogical, and is something that the attorneys are now appealing. And it's a very important appeal because it's not just saying some errors were made in, by the judge, although it does say that. It's saying that the indictment itself should not have been allowed to happen. The indictment itself is the indictment alone is a threat to the First Amendment. To have the government be able to use this foreign agent law to target pure political speech, to be able to say your speech is no longer protected by the First Amendment simply because the government alleges that you had some relationship to a so-called foreign government, simply on the basis that your views may from time to time align with the views of that so-called foreign government. That is a very dangerous precedent the government is trying to set. And the Uhuru 3 and the legal team are working to set the opposite precedent, that no, the government cannot do that. It hands off freedom of speech and hands off international solidarity, the right of African and oppressed peoples to have international relationships. So I just want to close by saying that the chairman has always emphasized that law is the opinion of the ruling class. And I think that's an inarguable statement. I mean, that's what it is. It's that the law is what the government says it is. And in this case, it's a colonial ruling class. And as the chairman says, the colonizers create the law. So what they say is legal. It's legal, but it's not legitimate because colonialism is illegitimate. And that's a very profound statement, because what makes a legal system legitimate is where it came from, what its origin is. And in this case, where did this legal system come from? What is it based on? What's its foundation? Slavery, genocide, pillage, rape, domination of African, indigenous, and colonized peoples. That's the basis of every law in the US and frankly in the world, including even much of international law. So based on that understanding, the chairman has called on the Hands Off Uhuru campaign to wage a campaign to demand that these particular colonial laws, the Foreign Agent Registration Act and the variation of it that was used against the chairman and the Uhuru 3, along with the general conspiracy statute, which has been used over and over again to target African freedom fighters and African people in general, that these laws need to be repealed, that they serve no purpose other than to function as instruments of repression by the United States government against African and colonized and oppressed peoples whose speech they deem unacceptable or out of step with the aims of the United States. And that's evidenced by the fact you don't see people getting charged for being agents of Canada or Israel or anything like that. So I just want to end by calling on people, if people are interested in joining this campaign to repeal the foreign agents and conspiracy laws, we will be holding an event on September 18th. There will be more information coming out about that soon by handsoffuhuru.org. And you can get involved in a campaign to demand the repealing of these laws, to go to local congresspersons, city councils, hold rallies, teach-ins, demonstrations, marches. This has to be, as the chairman says, a popular campaign, a massive campaign. And it's part of the fight back. It's part of the counteroffensive to show the Uhuru 3 case as exemplary of the fact that when the people fight, the people win. So Uhuru, Black is back. Hands off Uhuru.
Wait a minute, Jesse, stand up with us. Unity through reparation. Unity through reparation. Unity through reparation. All right, Uhuru. Uhuru. I had to bring up Sister Belinda Parker Brown to help me introduce this next person, because she said he gotta be here. And we're like, all right. And whenever she says something, it happens. Our brother, attorney Mutaqee Akbar, with his family tree partially rooted in the city of Tallahassee, attorney Mutaqee Akbar has an innate and sincere compassion for the protection of its population. He is the son of a notable psychologist, Naeem Akbar, Attorney Akbar's expectations for himself have always been set high, a fact that has allowed him to be successful in his endeavors and practice. As an alumnus of Atlanta, Georgia's Morehouse College, Uhuru Morehouse, he graduated cum laude and an alumnus for the University of Miami School of Law, where he would again graduate cum laude. His prowess in education, however, hardly speaks to his legal experience or proficiency. Attorney Akbar has participated in the 11th, 15th, and 17th Judicial Circuit Public Defender's Office of Miami, West Palm Beach, and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. After valuable work experience in Miami, he migrated back to his roots in Tallahassee to protect the justice, respect, and freedom of its inhabitants, unwavering in his vow to safeguard the morals of the community. Attorney Akbar is an award-winning criminal defense attorney who continues to be motivated by the overrepresentation of minorities in the criminal justice system. It is his passion to be at the forefront of change. Uhuru!
Uhuru! You know, before he come, I want to say that I saw this young man in action up in that federal courtroom. Oh my, I'm telling you, it was a sight to see. I mean, you can't really talk about it. You had to be there to see it for yourself. But when this young man took the stand in that courtroom and he threw up his fist and he said, Uhuru! Uhuru! And he paced the floor. I mean, he strutted with it. And he said, Uhuru! And broke it down to him and said, that means freedom. And I'm telling you, to see him in action in that courtroom, people. And I just want to salute in solidarity with his mother. You know, if it's any such thing as robbing and stealing, you know, I will steal this child from Dr. Renee. Is she in the house today? Uhuru! Come on, brother, you take the floor.
I appreciate it. That's the best introduction I've ever gotten, so I appreciate it. And I want to start by thanking my mom for being here. Also, Dr. Akbar, Dr. Renee Akbar, she teaches over at Xavier University and is in the faculty and staff in the education department over there. And she's been there for, what, 22 years now. And she's the first educator that I've known, even though, you know, my dad was a professor at Florida State University, but she's always been an educator. So we would go to her classrooms with, you know, elementary school, and she went up to principal, assistant principal, and all the way through. But that love for education, and not just like what they tell you you should teach children, but the love to educate children in who they should be. And so even now, after leaving Tallahassee, 30 years ago, or leaving the school system 30 years ago in Tallahassee, her students come up to me and say, man, how's your mom doing? You know, and just talk about what she put in them, you know, 30 years ago. And it was in some of the toughest schools in Tallahassee, and they still remember that. So that seed is important, and not only for what you did to the community, but also in us as well. And that's a part of why I'm here, or how I got here. Not, you know, with both my parents understanding, one, the importance of community, and two, understanding the importance of making sure that our future is protected. And so when I tell the story sometimes, when I got the emails about joining the legal team for the Uhuru 3, I initially thought it was spam. And I ignored several emails before I just let me see what this guy is talking about. And so I responded, and I ended up talking, and they told me what it was about. And I heard Russia, and I heard federal indictment, and I heard these things. And I was like, I'm going to let you know if I can do this or not. And then I went to my law partner at the time, and she was like, absolutely not. Nothing dealing with Russia. No, we're not doing it. And then I talked to my dad about it, and he was like, I got some concerns, you know, really think about it. And so I did. So I thought about it. And, you know, and I've known about the African People's Socialist Party, you know, for years, you know, before Dead Prez, but, you know, through Dead Prez, and knowing about the work, just being in the community, because we've always been in the community as a family. So we know about all the revolutionaries and the righteous folks and the righteous organizations. So in thinking about it, you know, and then of course there's concerns about safety and all this stuff, but I was just like, what did I get my degree for if I can't use it for a case like this? If I can't use it to fight against issues like this. And so so at the time when we first got the call, it was just the search warrants, and it was the potential for an indictment. And of course, like at the time, it was always like, what can we do at this stage? That was the question that, you know, that it was the Uhuru for at the time. Like, you know, what can we do? What can we do to stop this? Y'all need to stop this. It's like, this is the federal government. They coming, you know, and there's not much that we can do to stop it, but we can prepare. And prepare is what we did. We met monthly, you know, for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And then it got into almost weekly, you know, whether it was on Zoom, whether it was on in person. And the information we got was literally, you know, terabytes. They said it was probably equivalent to 1 million books worth of evidence that we got. And trying to comb through it, like Jesse came to Tallahassee, and we met for a whole weekend and still couldn't get through it all to try to determine, you know, what it is that they're talking about. And what we ultimately found out, they didn't have anything that they were talking about. Like, it was all a bunch of fluff, but they gave us a bunch of stuff to look through to try to figure it out. So between the search warrant and you know, the trial, and at this point we're in the discovery phase of the trial, going through everything. So when we had these meetings, a part of those meetings, of course, like, it's the legal team and the clients, plus, you know, other members of the organization. We always like kind of talked about strategy from a bird's eye view. But one of the things that we ultimately had to determine was whether we were going to shy away from the work of the organization, or whether we were going to highlight the work of the organization. And one strategy, of course, like for attorneys who are, you know, like as an attorney, like, sometimes you want to be strategic and you want to say, well, we trying to think ahead to what this jury would look like. And so this is Tampa, Florida, it's Hillsborough, it's that area, a lot of retirees. We knew it would be a lot of older white people. They might hear words like Uhuru and freeze up, or they might hear things like self-determination and freeze up, or get scared, or want to indict just cause. Or they hear Russia, they hear you having conversations with Russia, they hear, you know, you're doing these marches, they see all those things, and they might just find you guilty just cause. And we had those discussions as to strategically it might be best to shy away from those things. But y'all know who else was in the room in these conversations. and that wasn't an option. Even when we said, well, look at it like this, Chairman. He's like, nope, that's not an option. We need to highlight what we do as an organization. And as a matter of fact, y'all come to St. Louis. And so he brought all the attorneys up to St. Louis. And this was prior to some of those conversations. But when we went to St. Louis, and we went on the tours, and we saw the businesses, and we saw the doulas, we saw the Aquaba Hall, we saw like the bakery, we saw all the things. We saw how they transformed a community that was, what's the word that he used? It's dilapidated, but he said I forgot what the term that he used is going to come to me in a second, but how he turned that community into a flourishing, is turning that community into a flourishing community with the gardens and the basketball courts and all those things. And so I immediately, when I went to St. Louis, I immediately said, well, this is why they coming after y'all. Like, this is what this indictment is about. It's not about who you having a conversation with across seas. It's who you're having a conversation with right in this community. Because you turning people who turned these communities into what they are, into people who are rebuilding these communities. and having pride in these communities and invested in these communities and making it into something that they can do for themselves as far as self-determination and independence. That's the real threat. It's not the conversation that the email or two that went over to some guy who happened to be from Russia. It's that self-determination and that building of a community that was the real threat. So that's what I immediately understood by traveling to St. Louis and then going to St. Petersburg and seeing the work that was going on there. So we had to strategically figure out what was the best way to highlight the work of the organization, and not shy away from it, and understanding why the chairman knew that it was important to go that route. So that's why, and we talk about when I stood up and said Uhuru means freedom, as my first words in the trial was to say that we're not going to run away from what you're going to hear today. We're not going to run away from, run away from the work of this organization. And I strongly believe that strategy was the best strategy, because that became the conversation. I'm sure that's what the jurors walked away from there talking about, was like, this is the work that this organization was doing. The judge even, he was going on the newsletter and the website afterwards because he commented on how they drew him on the bench. So we knew he was going on the website, which means he's looking at the work that this organization was doing. And he said, like, yeah, I'm familiar, that they're usually called the Uhurus. I'm familiar with the organization. He said that in jury selection. So this federal judge is familiar with the organization and who they are. So we wanted to make sure that the jury was also familiar with the organization and who they are. So we went a week and a half of testimony from the federal witnesses, and every time we questioned them, we went back to the work of the organization. Well, didn't they actually do these marches? And during these time that they were doing these marches, weren't it black boys getting killed almost on a monthly basis? And that's what they were fighting against, and that's what they were fighting for. And federal agents like, yeah, this work was, it was necessary. Yes, these things were going on. Yes, they were raising money for that. Yes, they were raising awareness on those issues. Federal agents had to agree to everything that was in the discovery. We're agreeing with you. Like, yes, these things were actually happening. These things were happening before they even had a conversation with this Russian guy that they keep highlighting. Yes, those things were happening. They actually contacted the African People's Socialist Party because they were interested in this work, that they understood that our government was police back killings of black men all over this country during that time, and that was a thing that was actually going on. So all of this is true, and we didn't back away from it. We didn't come in saying like, well, they really didn't have that much to do with it. Like, no, they were the ones who put it out there, so other people in St. Louis showed up in order to speak out against these things. So that was the highlight. And so as we, went through the trial, I think another huge part of the trial was when we showed the video from the tour, the bus tour. And when we showed that video, it was the group standing around the young lady who they met. I think it was in Chicago. And so the young lady, she was just like, in the video, she was just like, man, this meant so much to me. I wasn't even supposed to come out today, but I came out and I ran into y'all, and y'all just gave me so much hope. I didn't even know groups like this even existed. But seeing this group, y'all just gave me so much hope to continue the work that I'm trying to do in Chicago. And we highlighted that video as one of the final videos. And even in closing, we ended with that video to show the value of what the organization is about, and to show the value, not only what the organization is about, but also to show that this work that they're trying to say was being financed and, and even the idea came from these Russian folks, where the work that this organization has been doing has been going on for the last 40 years. So we highlighted all of those things strategically in order to put the revolution on the front of the conversation, as opposed to us backing away or trying to defend what they're saying the entire time. We really didn't have to defend and say, no, we're not Russian agents. We really just said, look at the work that we've been doing this whole time to kind of exemplify the work that the African People's Socialist Party has been doing. So that was the strategy of the trial. The strategy of the trial was to highlight the work that's been going on the entire time. And again, it was a risky strategy, but it was one that was important. And it was one also where if the worst case scenario would have happened, if the jury would have just gotten it wrong and they would have got, and the Uhuru 3 would have gotten found guilty of that, they would have gotten found guilty knowing that we stood up for highlighting the work that was being done and not backing down from the work that was being done and kind of stood up and ran through it the entire time. And I think that was important as well, to stand up in this fight as opposed to laying down in this fight. And that was one thing that the chairman wanted to make sure of. And so now, and just to go back a little bit, understanding, like, I guess, like, the decision to like take on the case for me was also like understanding that this was not a new thing. And when I say this was not a new thing, federally prosecuting people who are freedom fighters is not a new thing. Federally prosecuting people who believe in self-determination and not just in self-determination for Black people, and not just believing in it, but understanding it, living it, and also feeding it into the community in a way that moves the community in a direction that can transform the community. So historically, we had Marcus Garvey. And, you know, Marcus, that was in 1925 when Marcus Garvey was educating Black people, letting Black people know that you are a mighty race. You're not who these people have tried to make you out to be. And not only that, you can get out of here. Not only that, you can build businesses. Let me show you how to build businesses. Look, let's do a newspaper. Let's build the Starship Enterprises where we can like go places, all of those things. And so the federal government came in not only to indict him, but also indict his character at the same time. And so the strategy of the federal government is not just, I'm going to lock you up. The strategy of the federal government is, I'm going to lock you up and also have the people not believe in you anymore. So the message with Marcus Garvey was, he's stealing your money. You know, like all this money that he's collecting from you in order to build the Starship Enterprise, he really wasn't doing it for that. He was stealing your money to become rich off of it. That's what they wanted, the federal government wanted to tell. That's what they came back and told the community. So even if Marcus Garvey would have won, or they knew he would be released at one point, they wanted to assassinate his character at the same time, indict his character at the same time. They did the same thing to the Panther 21. You know, when they indicted the Panther 21, it was all this information that came out about all of them, about the infighting and all these things that they tried to destroy the Panthers in their indictment. Same thing with W.E.B. Du Bois. In their indictment, they wanted to destroy his character and all the work that he was doing. So even when he comes back, people are questioning the work that he was doing. So the history of federal indictments to indict you criminally and to take your freedom away is also a history of character indictment as well. And that was another reason why we had to stand up the way that we stood up through this fight, because the strategy was also to say that all this work that the chairman and the African People's Socialist Party have been doing for the last 40 years, the federal government strategies was to say that it's not a function of their own work. They're trying to say that it's not, their own strategies. They got these strategies from Russia. Like that was a part of the indictment, was to indict the character of the organization itself. But I guess they didn't know who this organization was, because this organization, one, don't believe anything that the federal government says in the first place, and two, understands the history of the organization to not indict the character of those that's been leading the organization all this time. But we have to understand, like, that was a fundamental part of their strategy as well, was to indict the character and indict the work that's been going on. So even after this, they want people to question the organization and question the leadership at the same time. So that's why we had to continue to highlight the work that's been going on for this entire time. So right now, where we are in the process, we filed the appeal, and as a part of that appeal, we're appealing, like Jesse said, like the idea that indictment, it should never have been an indictment. It should have been dismissed from the very beginning, because all the things that they were saying were illegal, these conversations that were taking place, all the basis of it was all freedom of speech. They didn't like what was being said. It's not that it was being said. They didn't like what was being said. They didn't like the work that was being done. And so that was the foundation of the indictment. And so we're appealing that part of it. God willing, we win the appeal. We probably won't hear back from that for another year and a half or so. The process is slow. It could go one of two ways. One way, it could be that so it goes up to like a panel of judges on the 11th Circuit. So that panel of judges, they can look at it, read it, and they can just do a written opinion one way or the other, either denying the appeal or granting the appeal and reversing the trial, or they can ask for oral arguments. And if they ask for oral arguments, then we'll have to go up for the oral argument part of it and argue it, and then we'll find out the results from there. And so, the fight continues right now. Our work is like on pause until we hear a reply back from the federal government, and then we'll go from there. If it's reversed, then that could mean a new trial, just depending on the reason why it's reversed. Or if it's reversed to say the indictment never should have came in the first place, then that will throw out the convictions completely. So that's what we're looking forward to, that ultimate win of a full reversal and a remand. So, yeah. All right. Yeah. So time is up, but I appreciate. Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all.
Yeah, you have a seat right there in the chair. Make sure you get in the seat with a chair where it's a mic. The mic should be on. We also want, Sister Kenya, you going? Okay, we also want Jesse to come up and be a part of this panel for discussion. Mama Fatima, would you also come up and be a part of this panel for discussion? Penny still on? Is Penny still on?
Yes, I'm here.
We had asked that everyone move closer because we want to go into Q&A and discussion, so I don't have to walk the whole floor. Okay.
Also, I just wanted to remind those of you who are in the Zoom room and online, well, in the Zoom room, definitely. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section instead of the chat, because the chat is not stationary. But if you put them in the Q&A section, we can monitor the Q&A there from the Q&A section. But if you put it in the chat, it's very difficult to monitor. And Sister Kay,
and vice versa, comments are ending up in the Q&A feature, which is making it kind of hard to decipher.
Right. So questions in the Q&A, and also we have to remember to call the people. Oh yeah, the camera. We're going to change the camera. How much time again we have for this section?
Okay.
Okay, great. So we can start. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, do we have Penny on?
Uhuru, I'm on. Uhuru, I'm on.
All right. Okay, you're part of this discussion.
Right,
do we have a question right here? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I came in late, so my question is, what was the topic? What was the discussion? So that I could ask a proper question.
Okay, well, we can't help you with that one. All right, but I do have a question. I know when it comes to, practicing law, that is certain guidelines and everything that attorneys have to follow. And I wanted Attorney Akbar to just tell about, your constituents, your comrades, when you tuck on a case like this, and you literally put the federal government on trial versus the chairman being on trial. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
About putting the federal government on trial?
You know, how you went into the courtroom, and this is going to help this gentleman with his question about how powerful it was when you reverse what you would normally do to defend.
Well, yeah, I think it's important. I mean, and this is in all cases, I think it's important to to change the conversation. And so in their conversation is always going to be, this person is guilty and here's why. And so I'm sorry. And our conversation turned more to not necessarily trying to say like they're not guilty, because I think that was a given, but again, like telling the story of the African People's Socialist Party, telling the story of Jesse Nevel, who was my client, telling the story of Penny Hess, telling the story of Chairman O'Malley in a way where they're not the defendant. So in telling their story, that was a big story, because it was all the work, like I said, like they've been doing, and not only the work, but the reason behind the work, I think was just as important. So everything had to turn to that, telling that story. So they teach us in law school when we try in the case that we have to have our own theory of the case, and our theory of the case is always like telling our client's story. So I think that's what we were doing.
Wonderful. Okay, any other questions?
My question is for all of the panelists, and I want to start with our mother here. Why is it so important for the government to always portray the people who struggle against oppression as the true criminals within the context of what colonialism is? And you can use your own words, but I'd like to know why that is.
Your question is in reference to why is the government doing what again?
Why does the government always have to make us look like the criminals, the people who are simply struggling for freedom?
I believe it's just something that government is actually doing only to people of color, to put the blame on us.
Yes.
As a mother, I know that we have to always be extra in raising our children, because when something goes wrong with that child, they want to blame it not on society, not on the laws, but on their upbringing.
That's right.
And the mother is basically responsible for parenting that child and teaching that child, but they don't want to put it on the laws and the politicians and the lack of in our communities. Thank you.
And the next person, I'd like all of you to answer that from your perspective. Why must the government always criminalize? Why are the people who stand up for justice and the so-called American way always treated like criminals?
I know Chairwoman Penny's on too, so I don't know if you want to go in order of the speakers.
Yeah, can Penny, can you, did you hear the question?
Yes, I did.
You heard her.
Yes, I did, Uhuru. I just wanted to point out that when you look at what the US government just put out about years ago about COINTELPRO, it had 5 or 6 goals for COINTELPRO, which was to destroy the legitimacy of the African liberation movement. That's what its goal was. It's one of its main goals. And obviously, the struggle of African people, the colonized, and white supporters of that, this is telling the truth. This is the truth. If you study history, if you study the true history of the United States, of the world, colonialism is really clear that this exists, and what the chairman calls the colonial mode of production. And it's the truth. And this is why they want to destroy it, because everything that the US government is built on is genocide, it's slavery, it's war, it's oppression, it's stealing people's resources around the world. And this is the basis for the existence of the social system we live in. So it has to destroy those who are telling the truth. It has to try to do that. But of course, the Uhuru movement and chairman have won a tremendous amount, and people don't fall for that anymore. Uhuru.
Wow. I want to ask Jesse.
I just want to also remind people we have Q&A, some questions in the
Yeah.
Q&A.
Okay.
Online. I think Comrade Mwezi was going to speak to that question, and then we do have a hand online.
Okay.
Uhuru, can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Could not unmute, and so I thank you, Comrade Zai, for helping get me on. And I just want to appreciate that question, my sister Betty. And I know we do have to move, but just wanted to unite with what Chairwoman Penny put forth in terms of the historical attacks on the organization. But it's very clear who are the real criminals, and that's something that we have to remember, that colonialism is illegitimate, and it's born as a parasitic, as the chairman says, and helps us to understand parasitism. And we're at a university. These are the types of things that we should be talking about. What does that mean in terms of a mode of production that is built on the oppression of African people, and colonialism is at its core. And so if everything, and just the answer, somebody I think had responded around being a parent, and all the struggles that we experience in this system are meant to oppress us and to maintain the status quo. So it's in the duty of the colonizer and the oppressive state to keep us from organizing, because the strongest weapon we have as oppressed and colonized peoples, and freedom loving people, is through organization. I mean, and that was in the song that we sang earlier: freedom through organization, socialist world, our creation. This is what the African People's Socialist Party has been fighting for, on the, through the trajectory of African people, because we are historical, and our struggle is historical. And this is why not did they just attack us calling us the criminals, but this is why they attacked the African People's Socialist Party as well. And the Black is Back Coalition, has also come under attack. So this is where we can fight back. And that's what's so important about this, this conference, is don't agonize, organize. And so I just think that that's also the response that we must have in response to their, this, shaky system, holding on to its last dying breath, and we will give it its final death blow. So Uhuru.
Uhuru. And the next I'll take it to Nathaniel. I'm going to unmute them so they could talk. I don't quite understand the question in the chat. Nathaniel?
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay, the question that lies with me is, and I believe the reason why that colonialism did what they did to Black leaders and so forth, were to destroy the white people that wanted to participate and help Black people in their struggle. I believe that's why they mainly did it, and how they did it is to prevent them from coming forward with us like they're doing now. That's what I believe.
So any of you want to elaborate on that? Jesse, that's...
Uhuru, is this working?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
You got to talk in the mic. We can't hear you.
Uhuru.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, I really appreciate that point, and I unite with it. And I think
change the mic.
Okay. and to just appreciate this whole panel. It's been really powerful so far. And I think that's absolutely true, that the attack on Chairwoman Penny, myself, the African People's Solidarity Committee, and Uhuru Solidarity Movement, including the raid on the Uhuru Solidarity Center, which is owned by the African People's Socialist Party and exists on the south side of St. Louis, which is where most of the white community of St. Louis lives, and that's our headquarters. That building was also raided. They blocked off the street. They did it very publicly with armored vehicles and assault rifles and battering rams, and broke down the doors and things like that. And the purpose of that spectacle and the purpose of the indictments of Chairwoman Penny and myself was precisely to attempt to scare and intimidate white people away from realizing our true interests in the stand of solidarity with the African liberation movement. And that's what Chairman Omali Yeshitela has won us to understand, is that for white people, solidarity with African liberation is not an act of charity or a favor. It's our responsibility as the ones who have benefited from hundreds of years of colonial oppression and continue to benefit to this day.
Wow.
And it's also in our interests to abandon our relationship to the white ruling class and to end our isolation from the rest of humanity and to pursue a genuine and positive future without any exploitation and oppression of human beings for the benefit of another, which is only possible when we stand under the leadership of the African liberation movement and in principled and genuine material solidarity. So yeah, I think that's what they attempted to do, and they failed. And the chairman said about the Solidarity Center, when they broke down the door of the Solidarity Center, they showed white people what doorway to go through to join humanity, and that's exactly what's happened. We've grown since the attacks on the party and the movement, and their strategy did not work.
Anybody else want to speak to that?
Time.
We've got one more question for Mutaqee. It says, how important was it for the trial that the burning spear was used as exhibits or used in exhibits?
I think it was extremely important because the one thing that the burning spear has done was to I can't think of the word, but you all have documented the work and the success of the organization for the last 40 years. So I think it was important to show that work has been done and it wasn't the result of any kind of collusion, which we knew, but we had documented proof that it wasn't the result of any collusion. So I think it was important.
I know, is there anything else online? Are we done with that part?
Right,
There's one more question online. This one is also for Comrade Akbar. It says, with the indictment and verdict in the Uhuru 3 case, we see the colonial state's use of grand juries, trials, and tribunals as counterinsurgency. This raises the urgent need for the Black community control over these processes, grand juries, trials, and people's tribunals, because control is the essence of self-determination. From your perspective, how do you see this materializing in practice? And what steps must we begin taking now to build dual structures of justice?
A dual structure of justice, meaning having our own tribunals and separate from. I mean, I think realistically, to get involved in the system, we got to show up for jury duty. I think that's important because one thing that we didn't have that many Black people to choose from this jury. So I think one thing that's important for us to participate in this, to have our own community control, especially in communities like New Orleans and other Black communities, we can be a part of that system. I just did a murder trial last week, and a place like Tallahassee, maybe like 2 or 3 possible Black people or possible like that I could choose from that even showed up. And so, and there are certain conversations or certain things that we can talk about that Black people would just understand being on the jury, but we One of the guys that showed up, he was like, I get bored easily, so I don't want to be here. Black guy, you know, and younger black guy, and who looked a lot like my client. So one thing that if we really want to be serious about things like this, as far as like community control, we can participate in the process in order to show up. So that's a part of it. Another part of the community control is like in most places throughout the country, you vote who the judge is. You can run, people can run for judge and you can vote that person in or out. So make it a political process. That's community control. Prosecutors are voted in and out. That's community control. Figure out who you want to be the prosecutor, and not only who you want to be the prosecutor, what you want them to prosecute and not prosecute, and the issues that's important to them as well. So that's community control. So we can, you know, kind of think of like a counter system to do it, but I don't think that's necessarily realistic. But what's realistic is how we can participate in the system that's going on right now and change that system.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me, can I just add to that? I'm sorry. I believe that we really need to change the mindset of the younger people, the younger generation right now. And as I mentioned yesterday, it starts at the elementary school level, as well as high schools and college. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for your wonderful questions and everything. But we are on. We have to. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Ishmael Ashraf, who was the one who made this happen at Dillard University. And on Dillard University, we have a day in time that we want to respect and that we're so appreciative for. We want to be coming back. And so I just remind people that. And now we're going to have a call for resources, and then we will be going to get some food for our bodies. And we got food for the mind, definitely. Right. So we're going to have a call for resources right now because we need to be funding our own revolution. So I'm waiting for the PowerPoint to be put up. And also, I just want to add one thing, as they were talking about that was a message to the white population to go after Jesse Nevel and Penny Hess. While that was happening, and let's be clear, was the Biden administration, Biden and Kamala Harris, who went after them. But while that was going on, this is just the truth. The Department of Justice, under the first Trump administration, had opened up the case into Carolyn Bryant to investigate her. The Biden, and you know, Carolyn Bryant is the one who had Emmett Till murdered. And so when the Biden administration came in, they are the ones who closed the case on Carolyn Bryant. They said, there's nothing we can do here. They closed the case on Carolyn Bryant, just as they went after the Uhuru Three and Penny Hess and Jesse Nevel. And so Carolyn Bryant was able to die without ever having to pay any kind of consequences for what she did. And the message was given by the United States government that you don't have to, while they went after them. Just wanted to say that. Uhuru. So yes, we got the PowerPoint up because now it's time to make it rain. Make it rain for the revolution.
That's right. And we don't take a lot of time when it comes to you know, calling for resources, because you know, time spent on this is very necessary. It's very important that we have the resources. Listen, people, we can't do this without resources. Okay. So we want Sister Kenya to go right ahead and speak to why it's so important, first of all, for us to call for resources and have people join up with the Black is Back Coalition. And I'm so excited about this coalition. There's so many things I can say about this coalition. One thing I want to say, without this coalition, I probably wouldn't even exist, especially here in Louisiana. I would have been and packed up my stuff and got out of here. But the truth of the matter is that they came down here on their own resources and supported me in the movement to call forth a campaign that had been on the Louisiana, had been in the Louisiana Constitution for over 120 years, where you can convict a person and put them in prison and give them 25 years to life on a non-unanimous jury verdict.
Preach.
And everybody knew about it. Everybody was talking about it, but nobody was doing nothing about it. And then you let people rot away in these hellhole jails for 30, 40 years, and then you find out they never should have been there in the first place. Then they let them out. They don't want to give them no reparations. That's a fact, people. I'm not making that up. That's the truth. You know, then we just heard where they took all the files and put them in the dumpster, throwing them in the trash. You know, we got people that still being held captivity, kidnapped in some of these prisons in this state. We know it's happening all over the world, but I believe that Louisiana is ground zero for it. So without the Black is Back coalition coming down, the chairman himself came down and met with me and helped us stand and fight against that racist, unconstitutional Jim Crow law that had been in the Louisiana Constitution for over 120 years, was unconstitutional. That's right. To put a man in prison. You know, where I grew up in Michigan, where if you got a non-unanimous jury, you know, it's supposed to be a hung jury. That's right. But here in Louisiana, all they needed was 10 to convict a person for snatching a purse, smoking a joint, and give them 25 years to life. It was unheard of, people. So yeah, we need the resources. You know, join up. That's right. Go ahead, Sister Kenya. You want to say?
I just want to thank Maurice for his contribution. And on the screen, you will see how to give. Comrade Zai, if you can help me. If you are making a donation online, I want you to go to www.blackisbackcoalition.org. If you are want to make your contribution by Cash App, it's $BIBCOA. If you're sending a check, please mail the check to BIB, care of Ikinge Maele at 4101 West Florissant, St. Louis, Missouri, and that's 63115. I also want to remind our Black is Back steering committee members, those that have not done so already, that this is membership renewal time. For any member that joined, individual member that joined a year ago, it's time. Any organizations, national, state, or local, it is also time. Our goal today is $500, and I know we're going to do that in the next few little minutes. Then we're going to go to lunch. I want to appreciate everyone that gave yesterday, all the organizations in the steering committee, such as the African People's Socialist Party, Louisiana United International, JOCO Collective, and others, which I will come back and report on later in the day for renewing their memberships. So $500, we're going to do this in a few minutes. If you're in the room, you have an envelope in your packet. Please fill out that envelope. We want to thank you for your donation, for your contribution. And again, I want to take the time to thank Professor Ismail Ashraf and Dillard University for sponsoring this event for us. So come on, everybody, let's do it.
And I want to give a shout out to Sister Mama Fatima. She's with Cobra, but a longtime activist. She's a fighter and in Louisiana. Woo, 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 woo! Woo, 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 woo! Yes, yes, yes.
Uhuru, Sister Zai, you got anything to add? We can go through the giving levels quickly here. Next is Queen Mother Ya Asantewa, or Dorothy Lewis, who was the first treasurer or fundraiser for the Black is Back coalition, 17 years ago, when the coalition formed. And that's at $1,000 or more. So I know that someone believes in the work of the coalition and can make that contribution. Next, the Chokwe Lumumba, who also was a supporter of the Black is Back coalition over 17 years ago, and that's at the $500 level. Next, Marcus Garvey, who we all and all of our organizations should be attempting to emulate the work that Marcus Garvey's laid out for us, almost 100 years ago. Certainly that is the work of the African People's Socialist Party to continue the work that Marcus Garvey has laid out for us. So that's $365. Look, you can make a pledge and pay on it monthly if you need to, but we want to we want to exceed our goal today. So next. Amiri Baraka, who also was a supporter of the Black is Back Coalition, and that is the $120 level. So you can put in the chat what your contribution is. You can go to the Black is Back website. You can Cash App. You can mail, so there is no reason why no contribution is too large or too small. Next. Fannie Lou Hamer. All right, who said nobody's free until everybody's free. And that's at the $60 level. Next. There again is how you can give. Go to go to our website. blackisbackcoalition.org/donate, Cash App, $BIBCOA, or you can mail a check. The address you'll see on the screen. If you're in the room, again, as I said, you have a donation card inside of your folder. Please complete that with full and complete information, please. We want to be able to thank you.
I'll do Fannie Lou Hamer.
And I just wanted to thank MQ, Leah, Comrade Lisa, Laura, and Angelica for their donations. Again, please go ahead and put your donations in the chat if you're viewing with us online. I see Larry Wells has pledged to cash up $100 and he will renew his membership. So right on, Larry. So yes, keep it coming in.
Also, Sister Renee, $100. Uhuru.
Thank you so much. And I'll even say this much: if there's anybody that wants to be a member, I can donate that $60 member. I can make it on behalf of them. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Uhuru, and you can get your membership card today. Be a card-carrying member of the Black is Back Coalition. Penny Hess, is that right? Is that who I'm seeing? Penny Hess, $100.
All right.
Penny.
All right. Uhuru.
And again, people, also, because an organization is only as good as the most valuable resource of any organization is human beings, members. Become a member of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations.
Uhuru. Thank you, everyone. We want to maintain our schedule. So just because we're going to break for lunch now for 1 hour doesn't mean that you cannot continue to give while we step away for the next hour.
That's right.
But we're going to go to lunch and we will see you back in 1 hour for the rest of an exciting program. Uhuru.
Uhuru. I'm going to do one of my Cash App payments right now. Uhuru.